And I hope you all enjoy this episode with Adrion Porter. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Your Visionary Podcast. Today we have a special episode. We have Adrion Porter, marketing expert, worked for companies like HBO, Cartoon Network, with Turner Broadcasting, and just a great guy. Adrion, how you doing, brother?
Hey, what's going on, man? Glad to be here.
Yeah, so thank you for just sharing your time with me. You know, I know you're a busy man. Thank you for coming in and just talking to my listeners and to me. You know, we appreciate it.
Yeah,
and so
my pleasure.
Thank you. And so we start this off by asking, what is your purpose statement?
Wow, my purpose statement. Starting right out the gate, getting deep, right?
Right off the back.
I love it. Yeah. Well, my purpose statement, I've actually gotten more clarity within the past few years of my vision. My purpose is really to help people I envision a world where people can focus on turning up the volume on their best self. And what that means is really not only unlocking and figuring out who you are in your best self, but amplifying that onto the world. To me, that creates more impact. So that is literally my purpose. Wow. And under that purpose, obviously, there are different things that I do, whether it's speaking, my podcast, consulting, coaching, writing content. It all maps to that purpose. And whatever project I'm working on, like for right now, I'm really passionate about helping people in my generation become their best self so they can influence and empower people like you and other generations. Awesome. But it all circles back to really helping people just to really not only become who they are in their best self, but amplify it into the world.
Amplify that. And so is that the motivation that gets you out of bed every morning? Like today I'm going to attempt or take a step towards helping someone amplify their best self.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, just being here with you, brother. I mean, someone that I admire, just getting the little short time that I got to know you and all the things that you've done, that the time that we can spend together, whatever value that I can add, hopefully somebody that's listening or watching live or watching later will be empowered to not only, again, become who they are, fill in those gaps, but just not only keep it within themselves, but give it to the world and amplify it.
Yeah, that's
the marketer in me too, as well, because again, I a lot of times we hear about how do I become my best self and how do I really, develop my skills and be the best of who I am, which I totally agree with. But I want to go beyond that. Yeah, like once you give it to the world, don't keep it to yourself.
Yeah, and that's something that's so crucial for my peers, college students, because we're trying to figure out what path do we want to go down. Right. And whatever path we choose, we have to make sure that we are our best selves, in that path. And so before we go further, I like to share with my guests on how my listeners, how I meet my guests. Yes. Right. Yes. And so I'll just share a quick story. I saw you on LinkedIn. Okay. I was scrolling through your profile. I was like, okay, this guy's worked for this. This guy's cool. And we have mutual friends. Yes. Like Nick Nelson, a friend of mine.
The brandpreneur. Yeah, my boy Nick. I've known Nick for a while.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I just reached out to you.
Yes, you did.
It was that simple. I just reached out. Hey, I admire what you do. I would love for you to be on my podcast. And from there, we scheduled a call, and we're here today.
Yes. Well, let me just first. I want to make sure your listeners are taking from that story just how cool that was, and I admire you for what you did. Again, you saw me. I didn't know you from Adam. All right. But you took the step, and you were proactive, and you wanted to you just asked me, and I admire that. So I just hope someone that's listening, if there are things that you want, if there are goals you want to achieve, or you see something that you want, don't be afraid. Don't feel afraid just to go after it. Either the worst thing I could have said was no, or I'm busy or something. But I really admire that. So kudos to you for doing that.
Yeah, and thank you for just going a layer deeper and really expanding that to my listeners. And so take us through the past, Adrion, what you really did to get you to where you are today, and the obstacles you faced and things like that.
Wow, definitely many obstacles, and but that's life. I'm a little more seasoned than you, and 47 years old, be turning. Oh my God, when I said that, I literally got the shakes. I can't believe it. But 47, but I'm a proud, passionate 47 Gen Xer. Awesome. But I would say I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. So Southern guy, 1971. Born and raised, spent my childhood there. Actually went to undergrad there at University of Memphis. Used to be called Memphis State, but University of Memphis. Go Memphis Tigers. Go Penny Hardaway. Graduated there back in the day in accounting. And then I actually went further, worked and went to business school and got my MBA at Vanderbilt University in Nashville. Still the South, but a great school, top 25 business school, really good education. There, I transitioned into marketing. Because when I was at undergrad, like you guys are here, I mean, I changed majors, man, like 3 times.
Same.
And not only that, so just true story. So all through elementary school, junior high, I was always a great student. Made plenty of A's and B's, mostly A's, smart in the accelerated classes. Went to high school, did well my 10th grade year. 11th grade, I just went through a couple of things at home, some personal things, but also I fell in love. Had my first girlfriend in 11th grade. Just puppy love. Just really got, and then I got crushed. But beyond that, I just went through some things and I just stopped studying, man. I just really just didn't be the true best of self Adrion that I could have been. So I just didn't study. I made bad grades. Senior year, I did okay, but I got caught up in the fanfare of like the talent show. I was actually in the talent show and danced and did a big routine and just got caught up, and I didn't really focus. So I took some time off after high school. I didn't go straight to college. I took some time off, kind of pursued entertainment a little bit, wanted to be in a group, also did some odd jobs. But then I just, again, at that point, I thought about, okay, Adrion, what are your goals? What are you doing, man? Get back into it. So I slowly actually, after about a couple of years, went to undergrad, then went beyond that, went to business school. And so I wanted to tell that part of the story because I want people to understand that, yeah, you may see where I am now, but during those early years, man, just like any other college kid or high school kid, sometimes you're wondering. So when I got to college, I first majored in, I believe it was theater and then television production. I wanted to be the next Spike Lee.
Dope.
Yeah, no, because I love creating. I love that part of me as far as what I was aspiring to be. And then I switched to accounting because I love numbers and business. I wanted something a little bit more stable. So I knew I wanted to have a stable career. So I thought accounting would be the right way. But then for a while, man, I realized that I wasn't passionate about accounting as I wanted to be. So when I got to business school, that's when I really honed in into marketing. And at the time, this was, when I went to business school, this was 1997 through 1999. So this is the early phase of the internet. So I majored in marketing, brand strategy, and also e-commerce. So this is when the internet first came to fruition. And I was fascinated at the time with Amazon. Amazon back then was just a startup. But I remember reading like one of the bios of Amazon back in like 1998. And I remember when eBay started and some of my classmates bought stock in eBay at the time. And I wish I did, and I did not. But that's when I really started to get my mojo in marketing and internet. And then that took me after business school to New York. After I graduated with my MBA, I got a job at Citigroup in their digital division. And I did a lot of brand work there for 3 years. And then after that, I moved to HBO and worked there for 5 years as a marketing director, so doing some great work there. And then after that, my wife and I, around 2008, while I was at HBO, we were about to have our first child. And I had been in New York for 10 years, and we were looking at, well, what type of location do we want to raise our child? We've been in New York for a while, and that's when we were going back and forth. And I made the recommendation that we move maybe here to Atlanta. We had family here, so we left New York. Moved here, worked for Turner Broadcasting as a senior marketing director, marketing, branding shows like Star Wars, Clone Wars, Ben 10. Did a lot of great things there. And then got laid off 3 years later. And then that jump-started me into doing consulting and speaking and my own business.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I just want to dissect that whole story.
Yeah, let's break it down. I wanted to make sure I kind of get the key transitional moments because, again, there were a lot of, it wasn't a linear trajectory. There were some things and some reasons why I transitioned, whether it was family, kid, graduated from business school, moving here, and even after getting laid off from a big company. So, but we can break it down.
Right, I want to go all the way back to 11th
let's
grade.
Go back.
11th grade.
Yes.
You said something that stuck with me there. Puppy love, then you got crushed. I feel like that's almost always how the first one starts out, because it happened to me as well, Like, I think it was around my 11th grade year too, my 12th grade year. So when I was crushed and I was just broken,
Oh man, I was broke all the way down.
Yeah,
pieces.
Right. And I know like some of my listeners may be in that phase right now.
Right.
And so what is some
point?
Yeah, what is some advice to really look past that?
Whoa. If I could take me and put it back then in 1987, that's how long ago. You know what? You're gonna go through it. I mean, you're just gonna go through it. Everybody has their first breakup, their puppy love, high school. It was my first like real girlfriend, somebody that I really cared about. I mean, it was young puppy love, and it didn't work out. She broke my heart, and it was one of those, like, I couldn't eat. You know, I'm writing letters, leaving it in lockers. It was so funny. I think back on it again. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I'm calling her on the phone. I used to pick up the phone with the little. I mean, this was back in the day.
The circle
and get my little cassette tape and play like a song, like a Luther Vandross song. Baby, take me back. You know, I'm playing like it's so amazing. I'm pulling out all the stuff. She ain't trying to hear it.
That's crazy.
So it's funny. Like if she watching this now, but but I would say that, you know, you're gonna go through those things. You're gonna go through your first heartbreak. You're gonna go through not knowing what you want to do in high school, and you just push through it. Surround yourself. And at that time, man, you know, there are going to be so many other distractions that you'll probably wallow in it for a little bit, but then you just got to keep moving.
Yeah.
So I would just say that you're going to go through those things, and it's better to go through them now, because obviously I've had many girlfriends after that. I mean, that was 11th grade. And then I landed with a beauful woman who's my wife now.
Awesome.
But you know what? You just got to go through it, man.
Yeah. And then one thing that I hear a lot is just to accept all of the emotion that you feel. You know, don't try to mask it. Don't try to put it to the side. You know, if you feel sad, just you feel that. You know, and know it's okay.
Yes.
To be sad.
Yeah, just embrace it.
Be hurt. Embrace it. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And then moving on to college, you took the break, and then you decided to go to college, and you started out with something that wasn't what you finished with.
Right.
And so,
yes. How many of you out there are going through the same thing?
Because I know me, I changed my major 3 times. Like I started out with information systems. Then I want to do information security, and then I was just undecided, you know, lost, and then I stuck with entrepreneurship.
I love it.
And so, that was my college journey. But how? What is some advice if someone's going through that, you know, going through the phase where they're trying to figure out, okay, I don't think I like this major. Maybe I should do this. Maybe they're scared to switch, or maybe they don't want to prolong the process of college.
Right.
You know?
No, that's a great question. I would say that what's interesting now, as that's different than it was when I was in school, is that we did not have this. We didn't have the internet. Literally, we did not have the internet. And as weird as that may sound, and so there weren't a lot of options to pursue, kind of get a feel of what you may want to do. And so for me, I switched more so from internal observations and feelings, and like, hey, I'm in this, I'm taking these classes, but you know, this isn't my thing. And sometimes when we go through those things, it's not just from our own thought process. We may have external forces telling us, hey, you know what, you may want to not do this because you may want to get something a little bit more stable, or you want to pursue journalism. Well, there's not a lot of money in that. You may have other forces. So I think what's great now for your generation and for people that are going through this college experience, with the ongoing nonstop great access to information, that you're able to kind of see and experience and talk to people, develop relationships. And I would say for not too long, but don't feel bad if you're not sure. I mean, seriously, changing majors. I mean, college, you're able to get some experience, but you still, sometimes the classes that you take and the instruction that you receive isn't congruent at that point in time with what your true purpose is. And a lot of times you don't know your purpose until much later. I truly believe that a lot of us, we have a purpose defined at a very young age. I mean, sometimes I believe it may be 18. Wow. It may be 20, but a lot of times, most of the time, we don't find and understand what that purpose is until much later. It's like we don't discover it. It's like it's always innately there, but then you go through life, you go through challenges, you go through opportunities, and then at some point, it's this golden period in your life where, you know what, looking back on it, I can see how that everything that I've done was getting me to that point of finding that purpose. So for people, so right now, like a lot of your peers that are in this situation, that's, you know, not sure if they're in the right major or concentration, you know, just listen to your instinct, still give it some time, but you know, right now is the opportunity to really just kind of figure out and talk to people. I'm a big proponent of nurturing key relationships. Like talk to people that are in concentrations and majors that you're thinking about doing, that you're like, I may want to pursue this, and talk to them to see like, hey, maybe based on their experiences, this is something that I want to pursue.
Yeah, and then right now you kind of hit on it earlier. We're in I feel like it's a perfect generation because we have access to so much.
Oh man, so much.
Yeah, and we can literally talk to anybody from anywhere in the world.
Right.
You know, and it's just taking advantage of that.
It's so crazy. Like I have a 10-year-old son, and he is. So you're a senior in high school in college.
Yeah, I turned 23 next week.
So you guys are you're Gen Z. If you want to talk generationally, or early millennial, it's really if you want to talk generationally. But anyway, you young guys. And my son is too, but he's on the younger end.
Right.
And he was reading to bed the other day, and he asked me, he said, "Dad, how many people are in the world, the total world?" And I said, "I think it's 7 billion or so, or 9 billion." I said, "I'm not sure." And then he goes, "Alexa, how many people are in the world?" The total population of the world is 7.7, but whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I thought about it. He has this little echo in his room, which that thing listens too much. So I'm wondering. But anyway, at that moment, I realized, okay, so when I was his age, if I had that same question, I would have to, number one, try to go find my encyclopedia. I happen to have one. Or if I did not, I had to wait till the next day to ask my teacher, and he or she would have to probably look it up. The access to what we have on this device, I mean, instantaneous knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. The fact that my son, and sometimes I think it's a blessing and a curse, to be honest with you. When I think about me as a parent, like my son will go through his homework and he's asking me, well, who's the 16th president? And we'll just literally, Siri, Alexa, we just know. Back then, we had to go in and try to search and find and learn.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's a fine balance, but I would never take the opportunities that he has and that you and your peers have. And the access to information, to your point, man, it is endless. Take advantage of it. Like the fact that it's crazy. You're sitting here across from me hosting a podcast that you've launched. Like for me to think about when I was 20 or 21 to create a radio show back then, do you know how much this would have cost? And do you know the barriers of entry that would have been preventing me to do that?
Right.
Like this is mad crazy. This is so cool.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it. Go all out. Like do not. If I had, man, I would be. If I had this stuff back in the day,
it would be different.
No, it's really cool. So to you, I'm glad that you underscored that. The point that I made earlier is that take advantage of the tools that you have now to figure out who you are, why you matter, and what impact you want to make on the world.
Right. And so after you got your first degree, what really made you pursue even a further education?
Further degree? No, great question, man. Just wasn't satisfied with, I graduated with a degree in accounting, and I did not see myself as a CPA. Honestly, I got into the major because it was safe. And I liked math, I liked numbers, but that wasn't my dream. And I wanted to pursue more knowledge, and I wanted to get out of Memphis, to be honest with you. I wanted to get away. There were so many different dynamics and factors involved with that, but I just wasn't satisfied. And it was almost like this thirst to make up for the couple of years that I didn't go straight to college. And again, the kind of person that I am, I started to map to my purpose. I wanted to learn more. I've always loved knowledge and information. So that just made me want to go. And I decided when I wanted to go, I only applied to a couple of schools, and I wanted to be at the time, I was looking for schools that were in close proximity to where I was, and I was in Memphis. So one of the top 25 business schools at the time, and still is actually, is top 25, is Vanderbilt Business School, and applied, sold myself, got in, and that was it. And then there is when I pursued, I think initially the first semester, I thought about getting an MBA in finance. I thought about investment banking. I think I saw a couple of movies where I saw some cool investment bankers, to be honest with you. And I was like, that was cool. But then as I realized that I've always been a storyteller, and I like the marketing element of business. And plus Vanderbilt at the time had a great e-commerce department. Like, again, they were on the forefront of when the internet was coming into fruition. So I really wanted to take advantage of that. So that's what it was, man. Just to really wasn't satisfied with just having a bachelor's degree in accounting. I knew that wasn't me.
Yeah. Did you have a job lined up after your college?
After college? Yeah.
The second year.
After undergrad?
No, after
business school?
Yeah.
So my second year, so the way business school works, I did the traditional 2-year MBA program. So it's full-time MBA program. So your first year, you take your basic courses and a couple things in your major. And then between your first year and your second year, you do an internship. And so a lot of business school students try to do internships that will help them within their major and help them pursue other opportunities. So I interned between my first and second year at Fruit of the Loom, actually.
Oh, wow.
In Bowling Green, Kentucky. So the main headquarters. And
Cool.
I did a project for the boys segment. I did a business plan, a marketing plan for their boys attire, apparel. And then, so second year, both years, I actually went to a big conference called the National Black MBA Conference.
Oh, wow.
And it happens every year. And so a lot of times your business school will pay for you to go. And so I went and I interviewed, this one was in Detroit, and I interviewed with Citigroup at the conference in Detroit. And whatever it is I told them, I sold them on it. But anyway, they brought me back to New York to interview, and then that's what it was. And they offered me a position.
Oh, nice.
And so the goal is definitely once you graduated business school, because of many reasons, and one of them because of the loans that you may accrue, which
you will.
Those things are crazy.
Yeah.
You want to try to get something lined up.
Yeah.
And so I got a job in New York City. Never been in New York, man.
Wow.
Always in the South, born and raised. I went to a couple places before, but never have visited New York at all. So the first time I'm in New York, I'm getting off the plane. I'm living there. Didn't have any family, by myself, and I'm the only child too. So I got off, found a great apartment in Brooklyn, but it was crazy. But it was one of the best things I'd ever done in my life. I tell you, I still miss it to this day. Yeah. There's a part of me that's like, oh, why did we leave? But New York was great. So definitely had it lined up. Yeah.
Awesome. And then the few jobs after that, you said HBO and then Cartoon Network, and then you get laid off.
Yes.
Yeah. Talk about that. That struggle.
Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, let's go back to that moment. So that was in 2011. And there were a couple of things that were very critical at that moment as far as just my life and experiences. Number one, I was turning 40 that year, and it happened before I turned 40. Now, before I got laid off, I had already planned on like a big 40th birthday bash. Wow. It was a big pivotal moment in my life. Yeah. And my son at the time, he was 2 years old. So I got laid off, and it was the first round of a lot of subsequent layoffs at Turner at the time. And that's just the nature of the game. I mean, at companies, they go through that. Yeah. And they gave me a package, so I was able to maintain financially for a little bit. But my wife did not work. Now, when we left New York and moved to Atlanta, she quit. Actually, she and I met at Citigroup. We weren't in the same department, but we met at the same headquarters. And so we both worked at Citigroup for a while. When we moved from New York to Atlanta, she quit her job because she stayed home with Cameron, my son, who was young at the time. So I brought in all the money, and I made a good enough salary as a senior marketing director. So when I got laid off, it was a gut punching moment. And so, I looked for work. I took some time, but a couple of mentors and friends of mine kept telling me, you know what, you've always wanted to create something. You always wanted to make more impact, create more impact. You should look at consulting or starting your own business. And that's what I did. So for a while, I did marketing consulting, brand consulting. I actually started off focusing on helping businesses use the power of sound and audio to market themselves. Audio branding, sonic branding, because I'm a big music junkie. Okay. And I love the medium of audio, but there wasn't a lot of times when companies or people think about marketing, they only think visual, but they don't think about the full sensory experience of marketing and telling your story. So I wanted to help fill in that gap. So I did that for a couple of years, and it was great. I was able to go over to Oxford University in the UK and for an event there, and I spoke there with a lot of other thought leaders on marketing and sound and strategy. But then I transitioned to more of new media and brand development, and then launched my own podcast. So I have a podcast as well.
Yeah, tell us about that real quick. What's
it called? So the podcast is called Gen X Amplified. And so we were talking earlier about generations. If you want to talk generationally, because sometimes it's easier. And then plus all you hear about is the millennials, which rightfully so, because they're a force to be reckoned with, just the sheer numbers. Yeah. But I started almost out of personal pain and observation. So when I got laid off, and I was going through my mid-career phase in my life, and still am. I'm in what we call mid-career in my 40s. There wasn't a lot of, there were not a lot of platforms speaking directly to my pain points or challenges or opportunities, or you're in this mid-career phase, you're stuck, you're squeezed, or you're in a pivotal moment in your life. And at that point, I wanted to be the change you wish to seek in the world. So I created a platform that would help amplify the voices of other great thought leaders or entrepreneurs or people you may know or people you may not know that are in my generation that are help making an impact, not only for themselves, but for younger generations at work, leaders. And so there wasn't a voice speaking to Gen Xers. And so I've always had that passion. Yeah. And it actually started 20 years ago because I remember giving a speech at church and I was talking about youth and young adult. And I talk about it to this day, where I actually gave a speech and I started talking about the power of Gen X, and we can change that negative title of Generation X to a more positive title like Generation Exceptional. And I was saying this stuff at 25 years old. And so that was a moment where I was like, my purpose found me and I found it 20 years later. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like that was one of those clarity moments. So now I do the podcast and I have some great conversations with great thought leaders, people that have sat on Oprah's couch, New York Times bestselling authors, some people that you may not know but have really great, compelling stories. I do solo episodes, so I'm doing that. Awesome. And now from a business standpoint, I'm a speaker and consultant, so I help businesses and very passionate about helping other professionals and people that are in that mid-career stage that feel stuck, but they want to get unstuck and find their voice and create more impact. So I do that. That's
real. And you said an interesting quote. You said, "Be the change you want to see."
Yes.
You know, talk a little bit about that, because I know as entrepreneurs, you try to solve a problem.
Yes.
And I try to tell that to a lot of my peers who are thinking about going down the entrepreneurial lane.
Right.
I'm like, all you have to do is find a problem to solve. And they're like, well, I don't know what to do. Like, what problem do I solve? And I'm like, what problem do you have?
That's right. That's it.
So just can you like dig in?
Yeah, no, that is excellent, man. What you said, because that is the core. And sometimes it takes a while to understand that, but I'm so glad you brought that up, because it took me a while, man. Like, entrepreneurship is really about solving a problem. Yeah. What problem do you solve? And are you the best to solve that problem? And a lot of times it comes from your own personal pain or personal experience. A lot of times, some of the best movements, some of the best businesses start from either something where you've gone through it and you couldn't find a need, so you want to fill that need, or sometimes it's an observation of what you see out in the marketplace. And for me, it was a personal need. Now, the podcast, that's one aspect of it, but then even the business, like helping other people that are in kind of my age group that feel stuck and squeezed or at a pivot point, or want to get promoted on their job, but they're not sure how to best tell their story. I want to help them do that because I've been there. Right. The podcast, I've been there. I see it. I still go through it every now and then. So I think it's really important. If you're thinking about, well, yes, I want to do my own thing, don't just get into it because of the money. Don't get into it because it looks cool. Don't get into it just because you want to put entrepreneur in your IG bio. Right. You know, like it's more than that. Yeah. It's about, okay, is there a problem or a need that's out in the marketplace that can be filled? There's a demand for the solution that you're thinking about, because it has to be a demand. It's not just about passion all the time. Yeah. It's about passion, but skills and a need that you can feel. I mean, at the time, and sometimes those things map up. Sometimes you can create the need. But I think that is so critical, and so I'm glad you brought that up.
Awesome, and I'm interested to know what's been the most important lesson you've learned like so far in your life, and how's it proven invaluable?
The most important lesson I've learned.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many lessons, man, and you know, the older you get, the more lessons you have. Yeah.
What's been one that
but the one that sticks out to me, honestly, and it's something that I've been really big on right now. There are two things. I'm gonna give you one. I'm gonna throw another one in there with the one. I would say, make sure you nurture your relationships. Nurture your network and your relationships. That's so invaluable. And actually, we talked earlier about help brand. I do a lot of personal brand development and I have a framework I created called to help people build a powerful brand. Because it's not just about having a personal brand, because everyone has a personal brand. You, everyone, you that's watching. It's your reputation. It's what people think about you when you're not around. Yeah. But a powerful brand is a brand that makes impact, that influences, that motivates, that people are drawn to, that you can create change. And there's so many examples. And so what I help people with, your leaders, entrepreneurs, young people, and the framework is easy because there are 5 key habits that I've acknowledged, that I've observed, that people that have powerful brands that can influence have these 5 habits and take these steps. And it spells out BRAND. And I made it very easy. It's build, refine, amplify, nurture, dedicate. And the 4th habit step element is nurture your key and nurture your network and key relationships. And the reason I talked about that one as the most important, because as I've gone through life, I've done a great job in nurturing some relationships, but I could have done a better job in nurturing other relationships, whether they were past work experiences I've had, family, friends, because your network is so key, especially now. Because I would say, so we talked earlier about if you're at school, you're trying to figure out what major that you want to embrace, talk to your friends, talk to other classmates, people in your community, at work. Right. Like, it's really critical to nurture relationships, because at the end of the day, if you may need something later on. If you were able to add value to someone, it can come back on you tenfold. But it's all about, and don't just do it just to get something in return, but I'm just saying that there's so much power in your network. There's so much power in your community. There's so much power in your relationships, that those are the things that are the intangibles that the value of that can't really be defined, but it can be so exponential.
Yeah. And can you talk about exactly what you mean by nurture?
Nurture is just, so it's not just enough to establish a new relationship. Like, let's say, like, you reached out, right? You wanted me on your show. Cool. I looked you up, make sure you weren't crazy or anything. But but we had mutual friends, so I knew that you were all good. Yeah. But me being on your show, after this is over, I'm gonna check in every now and then. Same. So nurture is just cultivating relationships. It's not enough to say that I know this person. Right. It's observing that you can add value. And whatever level that is, adding value could be anything. It could be a phone call. It could be offering something that person needs. It could be getting them from point A to point B, small, minuscule, or large. But nurture is just the way you would nurture anything that's important to you. Yeah. Cultivating, being responsive, adding value. That's what I mean by nurture. Because again, a lot of times, and especially in this social media world right now, that we're so focused on follower count or connections and those vanity numbers, and we equate that with someone that's being very powerful and happy and successful. But a lot of times, the majority of those followers that you may have on IG or LinkedIn, like, you don't know them. You may have connected, and that's okay. But do you really know them? Have you added value? Yeah. And nobody's expecting you to know all of them anyway, but I'm saying the most important relationships that you have are the ones that's going to stay with you. And I just think it's really critical, especially for people in your generation, as you're starting your path to greatness. You start now, plant those seeds now, man, and then the fruits will just be so valuable to you later on.
Right. That's so true. And when I think of building relationships, I think of sometimes taking risk, if there's someone that you admire and you want to get in contact with, try to say, it might require risk taking, right? And I know that's just a part of experiencing and growing and just living, life. And so how have you embraced risk taking throughout your life?
Wow, I've taken risks, some good and some bad. I think, again, just when I got laid off and just taking the risk of giving this a shot, saying that I want to do something, especially while you're having a family and you have responsibilities. That's a big risk. Pursuing a major that you're not sure of, reaching out to people to be on my podcast. Like, I've interviewed some great individuals, but a lot of them I reached out. Now, I will say that the reason I've had some and successful is relative. So yes, I've interviewed a lot of great people that have huge follower counts, but I've interviewed people that a lot of people don't know because they had great stories. But I had to have reached out, and a lot of them do come to me, but there are a few that I actually reach out and say, hey, I have this show. What I've done before, though, is that I created a platform that obviously they felt that was beneficial to them and was compelling, but it took me to reach out to say, hey, would you be on my show? Would you, I've interviewed yesterday someone who's won an Emmy Award, and it's a brother, and actually going to be dropping that episode probably in a couple of weeks by the time this airs. But I reached out because I was a fan of what he does, and I reached out. Now, he did tell me he looked at what I did and thought it was compelling, but if I did not take the initiative and take the risk of being laughed at or saying, no, man, I'm not, I don't know you, then that relationship would not have cultivated and manifested itself. Yeah. So you just have to take a risk.
Yeah, that's important. And now this is good. I got one finale question for you. And so I know as an individual, I always say you're the CEO of yourself. No matter what your job position is, you control your thoughts and your actions. So therefore, you control you as a business, like you are the CEO. And so my question is, what advice would you give your 21-year-old self about building a personal brand and just being the CEO of yourself?
Wow, great question. So I would say what I know now is that it kind of goes back to, because that's what I do now and what I'm very passionate about. So I'm glad you ended on this, is helping people build a brand, is don't just think about becoming known. Think about how you can add value. To me, again, your personal brand is what people already think about you. It's your reputation. Now, how intentional you are in making sure that reputation is shaped and is congruent and compatible to what your goals are, that's where your work comes in. Like if you treat somebody bad the next day or consistently, your personal brand is going to be somebody that's going to be like, they're not cool, right. Because that's the reputation. But right. So I would tell them, and it goes back to this framework. I would say that focus on 5 key areas that you can do to help you become a brand that you want to be, that's powerful, that's valuable, and that's influential. 5 key areas. Number 1 is you need to build the blueprint of your brand DNA, the core of who you are. Understand that your brand DNA is, there are 5 elements into that, and I'll make it pretty simple. Know what your purpose is. All right. This is your DNA, like your blueprint, your core. What is your purpose? What is your why? Number 1. Number 2, how do you want to be positioned? When people think about you in context to your community, to your job, your school, what's your positioning? Number 3, what's your purpose? What's your promise? Sorry, your promise. Your purpose was the first one. What's your promise? So that is literally when people interact with you, what's the guaranteed experience that you're promising them? Like what are you promising? Number 4, understand what your personality is. Like, how do you want to be perceived? Are you happy? Are you going to be serious? Are you a leader brain? What's your personality? And then the 5th part of your DNA is what's your brand expression? Like that's visually, that's how you're going to express those different elements, your tone. So understand your DNA. Number 1, build the blueprint of your DNA. Secondly, you need to refine and develop your skills. Yeah. All right. Think about skills, no matter what it is, soft skills and hard skills. Really focus on your skills. 3, amplify your story and ideas. Don't just keep them to yourself, but amplify them. Offline, online, promote yourself, tell your story. 4thly, nurture your network and key relationships. And then lastly, D, BRAND, brand. Dedicate and devote time to consistent action. All right. Don't just be about it. Don't do it. Just be about it consistently. Like, nurture your relationships, add value, focus on yourself, keep doing things like this. Dedicate. A lot of people don't do that. Yeah. They don't really focus on productivity. Build the blueprint of your DNA, refine your skill sets and develop those skills, amplify your story, nurture your relationships, and dedicate time. BRAND. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's a gem. And guys, I hope you wrote that down. If you didn't, rewind it, replay that, and write it down, because I know I did. That was super important, and I definitely want to reflect on that. Cool. And so as we finish, I just want to thank you again, for your time and coming in and talk to me. Yes. This has been valuable for me, and I know it's going to be valuable for my listeners as well. And so I'm hoping to have you on, later on. I plan to keep doing this. Oh, this is great. Podcast, and just see where it goes.
Right. Well, look, first of all, honored to be here, and I'm glad. Good to see you doing what you're doing. I started my podcast at like 43, 44, and you're sitting here doing this now, and so it's motivating for me, even me having a son, to see that what he can accomplish, and just the things and the value that you're looking to do with you and your colleague over here.
my guy Mason. Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't know if you want him behind the scenes. But this is great. This is a collaborative effort that you guys are creating something to create impact in the world, to motivate other people. Like, that is powerful, man. So I would encourage you to don't stop. You may pivot every now and then. You may have a new idea, or you may want to evolve. That's okay. But don't stop being you. All right? Don't stop, man.
I appreciate that. And lastly, let my listeners know how they can find you.
Cool. Yeah, so it's easy. Go to adrionporter.com. That's my personal website, ADRION, Porter, PRTER. And then on the social webs, I'm everywhere at Adrion Porter. So LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn. IG, Facebook. I'm on Twitter at Adrion Porter. So everything is Adrion Porter. So it's pretty easy.
Boom. There it is, guys. Right, Visionary C signing out. Peace.
Cool.